Hello and welcome to another further education focused episode of Beyond the Technology. This is a special episode celebrating JISC's Discovery Tool and the newly launched Essentials Digital Skills question set. I'm Andrew McFadden, Senior Consultant in FE and Skills, and today I'm delighted that we have Zoe Tierney with us from Burton and South Derbyshire College, who over just a short space of time has taken the college to the top of the Discovery Tool user charts across the whole of the college sector. So welcome Zoe, thank you so much for joining us.
No, thank you for having me. Yes, I'm Zoe Tierney from Burton and South Derbyshire College. I sit within quality and performance, and I oversee the digital aspect of teaching, learning and assessment. So I support both staff and learners. And we are an FE college, predominantly 16 to 19, but we do have HE provision, a SEN provision and an ESOLVE provision. Um, and also obviously apprenticeships as well. My role kind of covers all aspects of the college, and, supporting staff and both students.
Mhm. And I remember it wasn't that long ago, it feels, that you sort of were looking to start with the Discovery tool, and since then it seems to have absolutely exploded. So what was your starting point for your digital journey at the college?
So I've only been in the role 3 years, and my first task was to write a digital strategy for the whole college, which was very daunting. My background is performing arts. I've been teaching for over 20 years.
Wow.
I've been at the college for 10, and to write a digital strategy and know the future, understand the future of where the college was moving. So when I started this role, we had a massive Towns Fund and SDF funding investment in technology. And there was lots of things, new things that we were introducing to staff, and I soon very quickly realized that we had staff from varying capabilities, different digital abilities, different digital confidence,
Mhm.
and it was very, very vast in terms of very small starting points for staff that are very comfortable delivering a PowerPoint, but anything beyond that. Um, and we had all this investment in technology, and I needed to very quickly then understand where staff starting points were to build that confidence in order to then be confident to deliver this digital aspect or the new technology to students, and have it naturally embedded within teaching and learning. I'm a big believer of things not sitting there gathering dust or being an add-on or a
Mhm.
bolt-on.
Yeah.
The investments such as, our XR, VR, our immersive suites, I didn't want it to just be a bolt-on for staff. I need it to be, naturally embedded, staff building their confidence. But actually, that's not going straight in and having staff know and understand how to deliver a VR session. It's going right to the beginning, right back to the beginning as to why, digital is going to enhance teaching and learning and engage our learners. As we know, our learners today, they need short tasks. They need
Yeah.
to be engaged from beginning to end. And our hour and a half lessons, we can't deliver anymore a PowerPoint and talk at our learners for an hour and a half. So actually, just silly things like quiz tools, which are all digital nowadays. We've had AI come in fast and furious, so we've got to get staff, confident with using that, but also confident in teaching it to students as well. So there was just lots of things that came at once, and it was a very quick, oh my goodness, we
Mhm.
I need to understand their starting points. And before I even came across the GIST Discovery tool, I sent out a Microsoft Forms to find out this information, but it wasn't really giving me what I needed. It wasn't giving me the tools that I needed that JISC offer with regards to the on-demand training, which I'm sure we'll cover later on.
Excellent. And you mentioned about things, digital skills, etc., not being a bolt on, and I think that's really important. How did you encourage teaching staff to feel that way and think that way? Because changing those mindsets is difficult. What strategies did you use to support that?
So kind of when I started and after, diving deep into writing this digital strategy came our big CPD um, time of the year. And I think because I was new in my role, it was very much, "Right, can we have a digital focused CPD event?" And I'd met people within, EdTech communities that were very kind and came and delivered sessions. I delivered sessions on some of the platforms that we were using at the time. The main focus with my role was to develop our use of our
Mhm.
VLE, and that purpose. So again, what I found was maybe our VLE wasn't being used to its full potential because of staff confidence. So one of my first things was to get staff understanding why we have a VLE, why we use it, what's its purpose, why do we need students to access this outside of college, kind of post-pandemic, if that was to ever happen to get again, what is its purpose, but also getting staff to understand what they could, use it for.
Mhm.
It's not just a repository bank of all of your resources that sits there just for you to access. Actually, what do how do we want students to access it? What's that learner facing, out facing look like to the learners? And as we know, a lot of them, with social media, they react to visuals. They need it to be short, sharp, quick, and responsive, and that's still a process today, 3 years on. Designing, because it's almost like web design, isn't it?
Mhm.
How do we want learners to, um, get to your resource? So and we have great tools out there now that enables that to happen, Canva being a massive one, Padlet being a huge one that enables, staff to feel confident in, because if I said web design to people, they'd be like, "Well, I'm not a web designer. How am I doing that?
Mhm.
I just want to deliver my presentation. I would like to deliver a quiz, and that's it." Yeah. So how can we have that accessible to learners outside of college? For example, our VLE is very much if, Joe Bloggs was missing that day, he or she can still access that work at home and catch up and not feel like they've been left behind. Um, so it was small steps, and having that integration and delivering in class from Canvas. We use Canvas as our VLE. So having staff, you know, deliver from there as well. It was changing the way that students were seeing the VLE. They were seeing staff use it, they were used to it, they were used to seeing it, they were used to seeing the interface. And it was also building their confidence at the same time so that staff aren't having to flick from platform to platform, tool to tool,
Yeah.
that it's all in one
Very
central
true.
place. And that takes time, and that takes changing a culture, changing a way of working, changing a way of thinking. So that kind of started the journey. But to do that, obviously, building that digital confidence and having the discovery tool enabled me to find out where those areas of development were needed, where those gaps lay, and where the confidence needed to build within staff, and where I could really do that, targeted CPD.
A couple of things just to follow up on there. One is we'll probably need a separate podcast for how you get yourself onto the CPD agenda, because that seems to be a big issue in colleges too. So well done for achieving that. But also, did you notice any curriculum differences? Obviously, everyone's got different aims to some degree and different things they have to cover. Was there a difference in curricula taken on these digital strategies?
Yes, because you'll find obviously, particularly within the creative industries, they they have digital teachers within their teams. Their Canvas pages, for example, looked very different to, say, for example, early years in education or health and social care,
Mhm.
maybe. Um, but actually, we were able to use them as exemplar courses and give them a way into seeing how this visual digital look could actually benefit their learners who are also visual learners. And yeah, I think having champions within different areas have really helped me. So over the past few years, I've identified different champions for different platforms that we use. So we've got a Canva champion, a Padlet champion, a Canvas champion,
Mhm.
and then kind of myself is overarching that, because then I get to see through the discovery tool, through CPD, the different areas or different members of staff that might be struggling with different, aspects of the platforms that we endorse and use. And then I can then signpost them to those champions, or they end up in a bit more of a one-to-one with me, depending on what their needs are at the time, or, it might just be that they're curious as to how they
What can
could
be
use
done? Yeah.
this, yeah, in their subject area, so
And those different identities are really important on learning as well because, as you mentioned before, not everyone's a web designer. If you went up to, let's say, a bricklayer tutor, they're going to say, "Well, that's not me. It's never going to be me." And creating an identity for them to be able to sort of pin to is really important as well, isn't it?
absolutely.
So, how do you see that link between developing your staff and the learner experience as well? And you've kind of mentioned a few bits there about how learners might like to engage with learning.
What I found is obviously the more confident the staff are getting using kind of the digital tools to enhance their teaching within the classroom, they're then getting learners on board to use some of these digital tools. So, um, I mean, I've been using Padlet for now probably nearly 13 years. I brought it to the college when I was teaching. So I've always used Padlet as an online portfolio. I taught a practical subject. So how could I showcase everything in one place? Videos, images. For me, it was music as well, and so on. But also how, assignments, text, and everything like that.
Yeah.
So what I have found is that staff who are now using Padlet are now engaging their learners in using Padlet. It's hosting all their work in one place. Students find it very accessible, whether it's via their smartphone, an iPad, on a PC. And that's become a really useful tool that I've seen grow over the years with both staff and with learners. And actually,
Mhm.
I've got a member of staff who was really, really scared about actually, venturing into the world of digital. And she teaches early years and education. She teaches the teaching assistant qualification. And now she's delivering CPD on Padlet.
Oh,
And if I'd have asked her to do that 3 years ago, that would have been an absolutely no way. As she has all her students using it. She now has alumni's come back and say that they've taken it into their education establishments that they're going to, and introduced it to teachers that they're working with. So she's got a really lovely story actually about how she's developed digitally using Padlet and Canvas. And because she'll straight away say, "Oh, my Padlet sits nicely on Canvas now," and it's all accessible and yeah, just to have that conversation because even for her attaching an email or, opening Teams, engaging in a Teams conversation, there was just a lot that was
yeah,
thrown to our members of staff at once when I came into the role. We're now at a point where we're streamlining. We're doing a lot of repetition, which is helping, as well as onboarding with new staff, new students. So there will always be that repetition and that development each year. But for me, the discovery tool is making sure that I'm identifying where those areas for development are. Staff have on demand training because of the report and what JISC provide, but then I'm able to use that and see that and then develop our CPD program. Summer being the main one, that's where we'd really do delve into the have a go workshops, and our staff really benefit from that, sitting with their laptop and actually getting involved and having a go
yeah.
rather than being spoke at and saying, "We have this new platform, here's what it does, go away and experiment or have a play."
It's always the danger as well, and I think I've been guilty of it in the past where you get a big screen up and say, "You just press this button, this button, this button," and then you get this, and people walk away thinking, "Well, I can't remember that pathway of button pressing," so
No.
having the chance to have a go on that safe space is really important, isn't it?
Yeah, and I just feel like it's enabled staff now to deliver more personalised learning
Yeah,
because, they're building the confidence digitally. There may be obviously through our AI, CPD, workshops that we've done, they're now having kind of that administrative burden taken away from them, so they're able to go into their class confident, deliver personalized learning, differentiate, get to know their learners and be more present, I think.
Mhm.
And then, like I say, these digital tools that we endorse or we've subscribed to or we offer as a college is just enhancing the learning that's taking place, particularly for the type of learners that we have now with the shorter, sharper tasks, the gamification element of that, and keeping our learners engaged for the full hour and a half.
Sorry to jump in then, by having that success with learners, I suppose, it gives you a pathway of the different types of tools that can be used. So instead of staff feeling frightened that there's, you know, a whole universe of digital stuff there, you can really focus down on these are the things that are working for us and our learners and just keep on that path and then build out slowly from there, I guess.
Yeah, we've said that right from the beginning. We're only going to use what works for us and what works for the majority, but also have a varied selection because one thing doesn't fit all.
Exactly, yeah.
So if we only used one digital platform, we know that there'll be certain areas that then wouldn't be able to use that or jump on board. So it's very much about finding out what tutors need, what learners want, what's popular, what's working well, and just constantly feeding back on the tools that we are using and very much streamlining because there's so much out there. I attend webinars and community groups all the time, and people are doing so many different things and using so many different things. And you could just get carried away. But that's when I feel then staff will just feel overwhelmed,
Mhm,
don't know what to use first, or which one am I using. And then they're not actually spending time to get to know the platform, to know what it can do.
mhm,
And I don't want to lose that. I want staff to feel confident in the platforms that they are using so that actually it like I said, we're very much on the workload and work-life balance and so on, and, if they're taking too much time to get to know a platform and finding it hard work, then actually we're putting more stress on staff, and I don't want that, to happen at all. Um, and it's about being inclusive to all the staff that we have.
and with that in mind, it was, I think, Digifest this year that you said to me, "The tool's great, but can you give us something for the professional support staff or those who need a little bit extra help?" And so we've come to the essential digital skills question set, so thank you for
Yeah.
firing us in the right direction to support the sector. How might I don't know if you've had the chance to have a look at it yet.
Yeah,
It's only just
absolutely.
been a couple of weeks it's been launched. How do you think that might help you achieve your aims for staff, maybe, and students as well?
So, I'm just gonna backtrack a little bit.
Of course.
So, we introduced obviously the discovery tool, and we got staff to kind of take ownership, look at their report, kind of set their own CPD route. But I obviously, from an admin point of view, only get to see kind of a holistic view, if you like, of what's going on in different areas. Um, it was then how can we get sight of those reports,
Mhm.
um, and have a purpose to them doing the discovery tool. So we've now made it part of the kind of PDR process as a developmental tool. So we're not performance managing this in any sense of the word. We do want staff to see this as a development tool. Um, so it's now being uploaded as evidence. It's now being discussed within PDRs with their line managers. And this year is now going to have an actual digital objective. All staff are going to have a digital objective.
Wow.
So that'll form part of one of their three objectives. And then off the back of the discovery tool, we've set up a rubric system. So we've got kind of we're working towards and then kind of a bronze, silver, gold tiered system where staff can kind of mark where they think that they are. And we've said that if you're doing a certain role within the college, particularly if you're kind of progressing and going up the ladder, you do need to be aiming towards that gold level. That's what we're saying. The working towards, is areas where I then need to step in there. That needs coaching, mentoring, one-to-ones. Because what we're saying on that bronze level, everyone who is a tutor and is teaching and is learner facing, they absolutely need to be on that bronze level. And it might be that they're happy in that role. That's
Mhm,
We're not saying that if you're not silver or gold, then you can't work at our college. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is those are the fundamentals as a tutor that we need you to say that you are confident digitally on that rubric scale. And then it's up to you. You can look at then how the rubric moves to see whether you want to progress. And I think then that's down to some of that on-demand training that they can access directly online, whether that's external training, whether that's training then we then put on. Um, so that kind of has formed the basis for all staff. That's formed part of our PDR process. But then when the essentials came in, I got a little bit excited, I don't know, because yes, it
Good.
is.
Oh, that's great for us to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Is because um, for new staff in particular, what is that starting point? I don't want to throw them straight into the discovery tool because the discovery for us, I feel like staff were a part of that journey. We're going to introduce this because we found that, from digital CPD, there are gaps, blah, blah, blah. Whereas, new staff, throwing them straight into that, I think would overwhelm them. Whereas starting with the essential toolkit, and this is, for staff and learners really, it helps me when I'm doing this new staff induction from a digital perspective because I meet with them. It helps me understand where their starting points are, and form a plan of how we can then integrate them into the things that we do with the rest of the college, if that makes sense. I don't
Yeah,
know
of
if I
course.
could explain that, well, but it just helps me target that support a little bit better. Particularly because we're an FE college, we're a vocational college as well. We get staff that come from industry, come from tools. Teaching isn't their first thing. So, you know, if I'm then saying, "Here's our VLE, here's the AI platform that we use, here is, Padlet, here is the quiz tool that we use,"
Mhm.
and then just throwing everything else at them, it can be quite, well, it is overwhelming. It's overwhelming for our staff that we've had with us for some time. So just it allows me to tailor that training, that one-to-one, have more of the check-ins, have more of that kind of mental coaching approach, with our new staff. And it's almost like an onboarding.
Mhm.
It really it does help with that. Um, I also then have said, because I've had to put a proposal as to get to how we're going to launch this essential toolkit. So it will definitely be for new staff. But we also deliver, the level 3 and the level 5 teaching qualification. So I've actually said that those members of staff that are doing their teaching qual absolutely need to do this essentials, kick so that, again, we can see what we can embed into the teaching qualification as we're teaching it. What Because I often come in as a guest speaker for this teaching qual and start talking about some of the digital stuff that we do at the college. But that'll enable me to tailor that little bit better, to know what actually I do need to come in and deliver, and whether that's not just a one-off, that becomes a series of sessions with our trainee teachers. So it's gonna kind of form part of that as well.
And I suppose it's giving you lots of data now then, and providing you some progression opportunities for staff, so we can start here and then move on to the other question sets in the
Yeah,
tool.
absolutely.
So how do you use the data in the tool? What's the best thing about that for what you're doing?
For me, it's seen that areas that have engaged, and seen then if I need to target certain areas for CPD, which actually is it's already forming how we're changing our summer CPD events. So, in the past, we've just done bookable sessions, tutors book on, we've got some mandatories, we've got some optionals, and then they come in. And as you know, everybody's at different levels already. So
Mhm.
we're pitching it at different levels. It's have a goes and so on. So already, because of the discovery tool and the data that we can see, we're going into areas. So how we're going to deliver it, rather than them book on and book on to what they want, we're going to go into areas. Say, for example, a Canvas update, we're gonna deliver a Padlet, we're gonna do a bit of a Canva refresh or whatever, anything to do with digital, we're gonna go into those, directorates, and they're going to guide us on what it is they want and need.
Brilliant. Yeah. So how do we improve the learner experience or the customer experience, and then feed that back to you about how you can enact
Yeah,
that?
and I'm already gonna know through the discovery, tool and the data that I can see, I'm already gonna see the areas where they need to improve or they want to build their confidence. So I can already make suggestions when we're planning these sessions. So when I have those initial meetings with the director and say, this is what we'd like to do, we've seen that there's an area, I don't know, for example, And data is always the one actually, because teachers are a bit like, "Well, why do I need to
Yeah.
know about data?" But actually, for example, we've just subscribed, in Wayground, which is obviously formerly Quizzes, and that's very data driven because you're you we they've now got that AI functionality of, where you're setting up the class, you can see certain students, what they're struggling with, and all that's collecting data from the
Brilliant.
background. Body swaps, we've got the new 3.0 pathway, where the pathway builder, where you can collect the data of what your, learners are doing, and the things like that, and I think that's where staff confidence is. I think when they think data, they think, pie charts, graphs, spreadsheets. That's always the one that staff don't feel as confident in, and why would I need to know that? So, that's just one I can think of off the top of
Hmm.
my head, but it's me more working closely with those areas to find out their needs so that we can bespoke it rather than doing generalized CPD
Hmm.
workshops.
Yeah. Excellent. So that data literacy is really important now for teachers to be thinking of. And I suppose that leads us to the final question, and what's next for you in the college? So data literacy might be a big thing. What else is next for what's going on in your world?
So I've only ever focused on the general question set. Obviously, there are others. So I definitely want to work with our HE provision more and focus on the HE question set, and really looking at how how does it differ from FE to HE? It's the same teaching staff,
Mhm.
but the teaching delivery is different. Students are different. We're expecting them to up their game. How do we expect staff to up their game? What is needed to make it and give it that university feel, that HE feel. So I do really want to focus on HE. That's kind of, on my own plan to look at
Brilliant.
that. I'd like students and staff to feedback. I want to do more focus groups around the discovery tool so that I can feed back to you guys, to give that digital voice back and what they think would benefit them through the discovery tool, because obviously they're only seeing the generalized questions. And I have spoken previously, the essentials kit is great, but I have spoken maybe looking at more subject focused question sets, um, because like we said, they all access technology different, they all access the digital platforms different, what is needed. Um, and also traditional teaching is not the same. We've mentioned already that we're looking at changing the way that we assess through podcasting, through VR, through XR. Are some of these question sets now taking that on board on how education is changing,
Mhm.
how the delivery of education is changing? Should we be incorporating that so that I know that actually, delivering a VR session, do we need to do something around that? Do staff know how to do that, and things like that? So I think, yeah, looking more specifically around actually the technology that's used now within FE, I think looking at that. I'd like to do something more around, digital wellbeing, and having, I don't know what that looks like yet or how that can look, but yeah, it's
Mhm.
something, I don't know if there's a question set, specifically focused on just digital wellbeing or that inclusivity or
It's a section of our framework that feeds into all the question sets.
feeding.
So there's
Yeah,
bits in all of them, but there's not one question set
but
just
yeah,
focused on that completely, no.
focused on that, yeah.
But there is the resources in the resource bank. You'll see a digital wellbeing resource bank
Yes.
bit.
Yeah, yeah. I think for my role, I really want to push innovation, and I know the biggest thing is time with staff. And also being so governed by awarding bodies, and awarding bodies maybe not being as up to speed as
Yeah.
we are as FE innovators. So looking at how we can be innovative with what we've got, and how can, the discovery tool identify staff innovation and, that kind of wish list or the hopes and dreams of where they see their subject going or where they see their own teaching developing. I don't know, that's ambitious maybe.
Yeah. No, there's lots of challenges for us today to think of as well. So thank you. You've been making some notes of things I need to take back to the team to
Yeah.
work on. Um, Thank you so much, Zoe, for your time. I really appreciate it. We understand how busy you are. Thank you for being such a fantastic example of how to use the Discovery tool as well in the sector and further afield. It's been fantastic to watch that journey of you just over the space of, it feels like it's only 18 months at the most, but
Yeah.
you're the top of the tree at the moment, so that's superb. Well done. Thank you
Oh,
so much for joining us.
thank you. You're very welcome. And thank you for all the support that you've given, because actually I'm just the messenger, aren't I, to staff. It's actually down to our staff that have done the work
Of
and
course.
and grabbed it with two hands and taken it on board. So yeah, thank you to them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.